Alrighty, so let's talk safe locks. Recently, if you look in your news feed or watch the news or whatever, it's on Google, wherever, you'll hear about a Liberty safe where the FBI had contacted the manufacturer and asked for an override code or asked for a code. I don't know all of the details about this. I don't know if it was a mechanical lock or if it was an electronic lock. But I wanted to explain to you what actually happens and how that's possible and how safe locks work so that you can have a proper understanding of what you will need to do to your safe to choose whether you want a manufacturer to have an override code to your safe or not. Okay, so this is an electronic safe lock right here. This is called a swing bolt. This is from Lagarde. There's several manufacturers. I've got Sargent & Greenleaf right here, and I've got an American Security lock as well. Now, one of the first things I want to show you is that these have the exact same bolt pattern. So, if on most safes, okay, most gun safes to be specific, you can switch and interchange a electronic lock for a mechanical lock. Now let's talk about the differences and let's talk about what override codes are, how they're distributed, why they're in there, and all of this nonsense all at once. Okay, so follow me. I'm Wayne Winton. I'm a safe technician, and this is what I do. I've opened thousands and thousands of safes. I've opened so many, I forgot how many. I can't even count how many I've opened up. It's a small niche thing that we do. It's safe and vault technicians. I'm actually a locksmith as well, but I specialize in safe and vault work. So I'm going to give you an expert tip and opinion on the matter. Let's talk about electronic locks, okay? If this is an electronic lock, this is a secure RAM keypad, this is a Lagarde lock. They technically don't go together, but the idea is keypad lock, okay? What happens is the lock manufacturer, in most cases, will build in a override code or a master code or a super master code or a reset code. Let me explain the differences here. A master code would be like, all right, you're going to have a user code which the person is going to use most of the time. That is your daily user code. Now, some locks you can program additional user codes into, like if you have a restaurant or a business, you need to put other people in there. There are some locks that do that specifically. Some don't. They just have one user and then one master code above that, or a super master code. Okay, that means that the manufacturer built in a code to here, so if something happens and they need a back door to get into this lock, they can do that. You can call up the manufacturer and it will give you an override code or a master code or a reset code. Let me explain the differences. So American Security, ESL 10, ESL 20, American Security products, they are all going to have a keypad and there's going to be a serial number, okay? The serial number is going to link you to the lock. Now, if you're like me and you like to be diabolical, maybe you change this plate out and the serial number no longer matches the code, so you can't get in anyways. Only I know that. But that's really tricky stuff down the line. Main point is, there's two ways to get an override code. Is one through the safe manufacturer who manufactured the safe, and the other is through the lock manufacturer who manufactured the lock. Okay? Two totally and completely separate things. Just because a Lagarde lock or American Security lock is in a Fort Knox safe doesn't mean that Fort Knox built the lock. Okay? It's interchangeable parts. Much like Ford would use Dana or Danatrack for an axle, right? They didn't build the axle, they just used that part. They sourced that part. Or like Dodge uses a Cummins engine. Dodge doesn't build the Cummins engine, they use the Cummins engine, right? So, if I were to need to open a safe, and the reason that they build these into there is because there's death in the family, things happen, the FBI raids you, I don't know. I'm also not here to talk politics. I could care less about whether it was right or wrong. I can tell you that when the FBI gets involved, the safe is going to get opened, regardless of what anybody thinks. So they went through the same process that I would. They contacted the manufacturer, they gave him a serial number, and lo and behold, Liberty Safe gave it up and gave it to him, I guess. I don't know the facts on it, but it sounds to me like that's what happened. That is exactly what I would do. That would be my first step. Now, you've got some companies, I've called some safe manufacturer companies like Rhino Metalworks, and they won't talk to me. They won't give me the override code. Okay, that's their choice. They probably made a little better choice than Liberty did in this particular application. For Rhino Metalworks, the owner of the safe has to submit paperwork, driver's license, photo ID, all this stuff, and send that to them, and then they might work with the direct end user. They won't work with me at all. Doesn't matter, I don't need them, okay? I've got way more techniques than they'll ever even come up with, so I don't need their help. It just makes it easier. So you call up Liberty Safe, ask for an override code, give proper credentials. A lot of times they'll just give you that code. If it's a mechanical lock, okay, here's where it gets tricky. If it's a mechanical lock like this, like something that has like a dial, okay, then that safe was set with a certain code when it left the factory. Most safe manufacturers record and document that code when it left the factory. After it gets sent out, after the customer gets it, it will stay that code. And that means that if somebody calls and they get the override code, they now have the code to your safe. I repeat, if somebody calls, if the proper appropriate person calls and they have all of the proper credentials, then they're going to get the code, okay? They'll get your combination. It will work. If you change the combination, if you hire a locksmith, if you hire a safe technician to come out and change the combination on your mechanical dial safe, then the manufacturer and the lock manufacturer, the safe manufacturer and the lock manufacturer do not know what it was set to, okay? On a mechanical lock, the manufacturer of the lock is never really going to know what it's set to because the Liberty Safe manufacturer or the manufacturer of the safe set that code and sent it out and documented it. So change your code and this won't happen. There will be nobody, the only two people on the planet that will have the code if you hired a honest locksmith or safe technician is the person who changed it and the person who hired him to change it. Those are the only two people on the planet that would know the code for mechanical dial locks, like these here, okay? If you have an electronic lock, then there's usually almost always a code built in. I would say 99% of the time, there is a override code, a reset code, a master code, or a super master code built into these electronic locks. So if you don't trust electronics, you probably shouldn't. This is the cost and price of convenience, okay? The cost and price of convenience of being able to just beep, 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 and your safe opens right away and not have to dial it in and take that extra time and skill to learn how to dial the safe open is going to cost you in how secure your container is based on the back doors built into the lock. So just know that there's two ways that back doors are built into this lock as well. One is through the manufacturer, okay? So, you know, a company like Sergeant Greenleaf or the Guard or whoever it is, they will actually put a reset code built in to the lock itself, all right? That means that if you call the manufacturer of the lock, they might have the override code, or the manufacturer of the safe may have the override code. They could do it either way. If Sergeant Greenleaf sends 100,000 of these locks to Liberty Safe and says, hey, we want, you're going to take the responsibility. We're not going to set the override codes on these. You're going to have the override codes, and it's going to be your responsibility and your liability, as we're seeing now, major liability, to have that override code and set that override code and then acknowledge the override code and then give the override code out. That is on the manufacturer of the safe in some cases. It appears to be that way with Liberty. In other cases, it would be on the lock manufacturer itself. So let's say there's a different manufacturer, let's call it Acme Safe Company or whatever. I'm trying to pick somebody that's not an actual safe company because I'm not trying to slander anybody here. Like I said, I don't care about politics. I don't care about liberty. I don't care about all the stuff behind it. I'm just telling you so you're aware of what happens. So let's say Acme Safe Company. Let's say they are not as big as Liberty Safe Company, and they want to have the lock manufacturer be the one responsible for that. So if there's a problem with this lock, somebody calls the safe manufacturer and they say, we don't have that information. You'll need to contact the lock manufacturer. Then you'll contact the lock manufacturer and we'll get the serial number off of the lock itself. And then the lock manufacturer could have the override or reset code. That is how that would work. Now, remember when I told you if you have a mechanical lock and you reset the code, the manufacturer no longer has it. Whatever they give out will not work. So this is the safest, most secure way to go if you don't want a manufacturer giving your codes out and you don't want a back door built in. These are always going to have a back door built in, okay? Or almost always. I can't use that word, but 99% of the time, you're going to have a back door built in. If you change the user code on this, it doesn't change the back door code, meaning that there's still an override. So if I change the code on this lock 10 times, it's not going to matter. The user code is being changed, not the master code, supermaster code, or reset code. None of this is changing that. Also, there are magic boxes now that open electronic safe locks. Those tools specifically plug into this little wire, and there are probably government agencies out there. They specifically make those units for government agencies to open the lock. So they didn't even need Liberty Safe, okay? That's the whole point behind this, is they didn't need Liberty Safe. And the end result was going to be the same. The FBI was going to get that container open no matter what. They were either going to seize the asset, bring it down to a location that the FBI or law enforcement has, and they would hire somebody like me to drill it open and open it up. Now, they can do that professionally and have somebody like me professionally drill it and open it, and then I'm working for the FBI at that point. I don't know it's that guy's container, right? I'm just doing my job hired by an entity. The other way they could have done it is just get a demo saw and cut the whole thing in half. The end result was going to be the same no matter what. They were going to get into if they ran into a roadblock there, they would have kept going down the road and the container would have got open no matter what. Trust me, when the U.S. government wants something open, they're going to make it happen. So, and again, I'm not here to discuss whether that's right, wrong, tyrannical, whatever. I'm not here to go down that rabbit hole. What I am here to do is tell you that the safest and most secure way to secure your belongings and your container is probably with a mechanical lock like this or a keyed lock like this. The great part about this is they have the same footprint in most cases, so if you have an electronic lock on there, there's a good chance we can bolt a mechanical lock on like this or a keyed lock on like this, and then you won't have this problem. Also, if you change the lock, if you have an electronic lock and you want the convenience of an electronic lock, but you don't want the manufacturer to have an override or backup into it, change the lock out. Now the serial numbers change, okay? You buy another lock off of Amazon or wherever, or have a locksmith come change it out. Now that's not tied with the security or the serial number of that safe anymore, so the override codes will not work. They're not tied to that lock. So several ways to bypass this. If you love your electronic locks and you will not deal with a mechanical lock, order a separate electronic lock and it will no longer tie with the serial number of the safe, and there won't be a backdoor built into it from the safe manufacturer. There will still be one built in from the lock manufacturer, however. So there's still a chance people can get in that way. Also, my magic boxes will open it. If you have a mechanical lock, then I'd have to put an auto dialer or something like that on there that would take days to open this thing. So if the best, most secure choice still, in my opinion, is a mechanical 3-wheel lock or a key lock like this that takes a key. The only thing that is opening these is either the key or the combination on this or an auto dialer or a professional like myself. There's no override built into it. I hope I've made that epically clear. I'm going to put some links to some Amazon affiliate links, to some mechanical locks. If you want to swap this out yourself or hire a professional, I highly recommend doing so. I cannot tell you how many safes I've opened because DIYers tried to change the lockout themselves, and the theft-resistant relocking pin engages, and they lock themselves out of their safe, and they end up having to hire me to come open it and pay way, way more than if they would have hired me to just swap the lockout. So that's the information. That's as much information as I can give you from an industry professional. I hope that helps you out. I hope that makes you realize security is only an illusion, people. That's all there is to it. Have a great day.